The nature of this conference has been something so during the last few days we had this conference with the scientists and the scholars, and the nature of this conference, which has been going on for the last nearly 30 years, 26 years. This is the 26th conference. The difference is the place regarding the place itself. First, it's an historical place where for hundreds of years now the study of classic philosophical literature has been going on, and also it is the monastery of the Dalai Lamas since the third Dalai Lama, and then the participants have been people who are well educated in science and have interest in science. So a huge number of students from these monastic institutions have participated this time with great enthusiasm, and so as a sign of their enthusiasm and interest, it was reflected. Of course, I have not been during the question and answer sessions. But I have heard what happens during the question and answer sessions, and some of the scientists also. I asked them, and they were very pleased, and that the students here asked many good questions. So it has been a very meaningful conference, and I'm very glad for that. And so the local monastic the organizers have dedicated themselves. I would like to thank them and Gardiner Rinpoche presided over, and then also many senior monks and scholars have attended these conferences. Although you are aged, you're old, but you took great enthusiasm. So I would like to thank you, and then I would like to thank the students also who have taken participated in this. And then there are school children also who took part in this conference. I thank you all, and particularly the scientists and scholars. Many of you are my long-time friends. We are familiar to each other, not only in terms of our faces, but we also know each other's minds well, and so we are good friends. Although you are becoming older, but your dedication and determination is really great. And regarding you, Arthur, you have also talked about even doing something in the next life as well. And so for many years we have known each other. And then also there are some new participants during this conference. And so during these last few days, you have really sincerely and been very frank with each other. And this is needed when you actually search for the truth. And so it's very important to do investigation. So you did that. It was very good. And the scientists, the senior scientists, as well as the junior ones, to all of you, you have also actually the experience of your own field of research, and you made your presentations with full confidence. I thank you all. So I've said this before. For many years ago, in the beginning, it was a personal initiative. So even in my childhood, I always thought about the reasons behind why things are happening. And as a child, when I received toys which could be run by using some key and also some electrical mechanical things, when I received them, I played with them. But then I always became inquisitive about what actually the mechanism is for these toys. And therefore, since my childhood, I always was interested to check why things are happening this way or that way. And especially after studying Buddhist epistemological text called the Valid Commentary on the Valid Cognition. And on the one hand, it made me very skeptical and thinking to know why such and such things are happening. And so because epistemological and logical texts teach about using different reasonings and logic to find out about why things are, and therefore this has helped me a lot to examine things a lot. And in science, the science is best in terms of explaining the what's happening in the material world. So in our text, we talk about the inner world of sentient beings and outer world of the environment. The purpose of our study of establishing the reality and truth is for nirvana and omniscience. But in science, that's not the case. They focus more on the matter and material things. And so to expand regarding physics, for example, physics, it is very explained in great detail in modern science. And so if we know, this is something we need to know, it's part of knowledge, and we have to know about it. And therefore I grew interest in science. So by taking interest gradually, I also felt quite proud of how in our own tradition we do analysis of things, examination of things, and then accept what is found to be truth through reason. And so the way the sciences try to find the reality and truth, know the reality and truth, and Buddhist way of doing that is different. But then both are skeptical about the things, and then we go into investigation. And in this way, because I find some kind of a confidence in these matters, I thought that it's not only, it's not satisfying just that I know about these things, which I found in science. Then I wished to actually share it with the other people. So Nagarjuna, in his Bodhicitta Vivarana, commentary on the awakening mind, talks about he deals with, he explains the some verses, lines from Gohesamaja Tantra, and then he, when explaining the text, this verse, then he goes through the different philosophical traditions of India, non-Buddhist as well as Buddhist traditions. And also Bhava Viveka does the same kind of examination and argumentations against the non-Buddhist traditions, and also particularly Chandra Rakshita, who was kind to the Tibetans in establishing Buddhism. And he uses lots of logic in his Tattva Samgraha, the compendium of realities. So in order to reject someone's position, we have to first know them. And so these masters have not just left aside, saying that, oh, these are just not non-Buddhist positions and thoughts, but they have actually. And in the case of Dharmakirti, we read in his story that he went to some non-Buddhist teacher to learn about their secrets, and he faced a lot of problems knowing them because the teacher was not sharing them with him. But then, of course, when the Indian masters have actually investigated into the philosophical positions of non-Buddhist traditions in India, and then through that they have made our own position clear. So we had this in our classical text, and then the Western science and other subjects are something that we have not encountered in the past. So, of course, Western science was not there during the times of like masters like Nagarjuna and so forth, but there are some mentions of Master Nagarjuna using gold, making elixir, and then making the gold. And so there was some practice of alchemy in those days. And then he was also a medical practitioner as well. And we talk about 10 sciences, 5 major and 5 minor subjects. And in the Maitreya's Sublime Continuum or Sutra Alamkara, it is said that if you are not learned in the 5 sciences, you will not become an omniscient one eventually. And so even in India, there was emphasis on studying the different subjects. And then when it comes to practice of bodhisattvas, as Maitreya says, because there are people and beings are of varieties of mental disposition. Therefore, if you don't know the varieties, you don't have varieties of knowledge, then you'll not be able to share that with others who actually come to you and need. I also personally have this experience when people came to me seek some teaching from me, and I didn't know them. I couldn't serve them. And so, which means that we are not able to when we lack the knowledge that others come to seek from us, then we are not able to serve the intention of the Buddha to serve others. And therefore, we have to know what are said in our classical texts. And so to know the position of others is very helpful also to make our own position firmer. And there are many things that we can learn which are new to us, which we don't find in our classical texts. And therefore, the study of science was started, and I felt that it would be good to start this. So from my own experience, because of gaining some confidence in this, then I made this request. And so in the beginning, of course, there was some. So some people say that science, studying science leads you to stray from the reality of the Dharma, and So Amcho Rinpoche, when he was director of the Tibetan Library, he came to me and in Gyume Tantric College in Hunsur in 1999 and asked me to give a very forceful advice to the monks, the abbots and of the monasteries to learn, make the monks study science. So we are not forcing something which is not reasonable. So making a forceful statement means that you use reason to make the points. And so we made things clear, clarified things, and then actually implemented this program of teaching science to monks. And so as Geshe Lhagdorla and Geshe Lobsang Tenzin Negi explained, and also when I discussed with other scholars, through this interaction and exchange between science and Buddhist thought, our experience about consciousness and experience. So actually what I had, this is something that I suggested about 20 years ago, and the results that we have today is something which I didn't expect at that time, something more than that. And so perhaps I'm being too much, but then it has actually made impact on many people, and now we have organized institutions involved in this. And they are now going to spread, expand the Minor Life has the programs of teaching mindfulness, training of mind in America, North America, and Europe, and people find benefit from it, and therefore so something which is found to be very beneficial, and people take interest in something which is beneficial to them. And so if it has no benefit at all, then people may have curiosity, but gradually their interest will fade away. But because it's being practical, what they are doing is practical and beneficial, therefore more and more people are taking interest in the program. So in the European region and Americas, this dialogue has mostly happened, and then we are thinking of in Japan and India and other places, so this program will spread further. So even if someone would to have the highest kind of qualification in modern subjects, education, so who can actually give some contribution is those who have studied logic and philosophy. And so I wish to say something to the school children. When we first established this, the Tibetan settlements, the monastic institutions had, in the beginning, many children from the villages joining the monasteries, but then gradually it seems that there were less and less children joining the monastic institutions. And so people might think that it's a waste of time to join a monastery, to study classical texts. You don't need to be monks and nuns. Of course, there is some benefit, certainly benefits if you become monks and nuns. But even as lay people, you can be learned. And we had such people in the past in Tibet. And so regarding the study of Buddhism, which we have kept intact for the last over 1,000 years, it is very important to take interest. And I urge you to pay more attention and take greater interest in studying Buddhism. So perhaps I may be saying it without much reason, but then I had discussions with many different people from different traditions of Buddhism, like from Burma and Thailand, those who belong to the Theravada Pali tradition. And I have met monks, scholars from these traditions, and I had discussions with them many times. And also I had discussions with Chinese and monks and nuns, and then Koreans, Vietnamese, and Japanese scholars, monks. So having met them and having had discussions with them, I found that the tradition of studying Buddhist literature over a long period of time and intensively, and also especially learning the Buddhist philosophy through logic and reasoning, through debate, is only exists in Tibetan tradition. And then regarding the text of logic and epistemology, we have almost all the texts written by Dharmakirti and Dignaga. In Chinese, it seems there is the translation in the past of the Door to Reason, which is written by Dignaga only. So I have been requesting people to translate the rest of the text written by Dignaga and Dharmakirti. Buddhist text on logic and epistemology. So this is something we can say it's our treasure. So the system of learning Buddhism in Tibetan tradition is using logic, and Madhyamaka argument is. We can say that, I've been saying that perhaps we could say this is the treasure of the world. And so our past generations, ancestors have actually worked so hard to bring this knowledge and kept it. And this is something that we can be proud of. So somebody said earlier during the presentations, so we should not take the tradition that we have as something to be looked at by others as like an entertainment, looking at some kind of a show, but it has to be actually used. So it's very important for us to study these. And as Tibetans, as practitioners and followers of Mayan tradition, we always make this prayer: may all sentient beings have happiness and so forth. So we are used to saying this, which is very precious. We are not disregarding life and not being totally insensitive to life. So when you see in the world there are people being very insensitive to killing and so forth, this is something we find to be very precious. So this is not based on blind faith, but also when you check the working of our mind, when you have a good, warm heart, then it helps others as well as yourself. And when you do something negative, it's not only it harms others, but it's very clear that it harms yourself. And so you can tell this from your personal experience. And therefore, as we pray, may all mother sentient beings, may all sentient beings, our parents, have happiness, and so forth. And then we also say, may all the prayers and aspirations of bodhisattvas be fulfilled. And so they don't pray for their own goodness, for their own good health, and to have victory for themselves. They are not praying for some selfish goal. And so we are following such a tradition where we pray for the benefit of other sentient beings. So this helps oneself as well as society. And so although we are in a very sad situation, but people find our nature, Tibetan nature, to be very honest and warm-hearted. Of course, we have bad people who are dishonest and bullying others, and but on the whole, Tibetans are found to be kind and warm-hearted and honest. And so these principles are something which we are worthy of for us to preserve. And so this cannot be done only through knowledge, but for personally, you should think of preserving this culture, and also for the Tibetan, in honor of Tibet and Tibetans also, we have to think of preserving our tradition. So we have, of course, rituals for making wealth, and by praying to Zambala, the god of wealth, and so forth. But we have no millionaires or billionaires amongst Tibetans. But then in the other parts of the world, they don't do these prayers. But then there are millionaires and billionaires. But maybe Zambala and Vaishravana themselves are maybe billionaires and millionaires. But amongst Tibetans, we don't have billionaires. So what we can be proud of is the Buddhist, the epistemology, the Buddhist tradition that we have. And so this is something that we can be considered to be our pride. And so the athletes, of course, mainly are focused on making their own name and having some honor and awards. So we need to be proud of our culture and tradition, and also our language and script, and which of course the script is modeled on the Indian script. And then we have translation in our own language of the epistemology and Buddhist literature. And when you look from this angle, then we can see the value of our own language. And regarding the modern subjects like science and so forth, we need to make more progress, and so that we can go in par with other cultures. And so we, of course, through the translations of text, science books in science, we are actually enriching our own language by increasing the vocabulary, science vocabulary. And therefore, through the effort and hard work of many people, of course, we should feel proud of ourselves. And so, as a result of our making contribution to the world through our culture, it is not we are not doing it for the purpose of propagating or converting people to Buddhism, but by sharing our tradition, we can actually steer people away from materialistic way of life, because of which there are lots of problems that are happening in the world, and therefore, if we could make some contribution, the reason why we think of contributing to the world from our culture and tradition is because nobody wants suffering but wants happiness. And this we can actually, in this matter, we can make some contribution. And then even the scientists have found now that if you're compassionate and have good heart, then you also are calm. You have a calm mind, and because of that, there's peace of mind, and then there is peace in family and the society and so forth. And so this is something which is very valuable for all of us. And so when we think about altruism, this is something which we value as Tibetans for generations, and now the scientists are actually verifying the benefit of altruism through their own research and experiments. And therefore, I've been talking about secular ethics, because the reason why I'm talking about this is because of the scientific findings of the benefit of secular ethics and its the values. And so our discussions with scientists, the goal is to serve others and to serve others in accordance with their mental dispositions. And something, if we can actually explain to people and show the examples from our practical experiences, then it would be really good to help others. And therefore, we have these discussions with scientists. So the traditional way of explaining Dharma in Tibet, and where people are taken for granted to be Buddhists, is not fit in modern contemporary times. The way the Indian classic masters have actually written their text is we have to follow that pattern. For example, there's difference between how Master Atisha wrote his Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment in Tibet, and following that tradition, we have the Lamrim, the Stages of the Path tradition and texts. And now what we need today is how the classical Indian texts were written, which were written within the atmosphere of where there were so many different traditions that challenge the Buddhists.
Many of you expressed to me is a complete satisfaction. So I'm very happy. Last year, when I suggested, now next our meeting instead of Dharmasala, the fresh air, Dharmasala much better. But in spite of that, now I suggested, South India, one of the bigger because of monastic institution, may be worthwhile. So now it seems because of the fact itself now demonstrated it's worthwhile, right? Yes. Isn't it?
Absolutely.
So little inconvenience there, but worthwhile to sacrifice your own little inconvenience, including myself. So thank you much.
Thank you.
So now I'm looking forward our sort of meeting, of course, in America and also in Dharamsala within this year, and then also in some different places.
Different parts
now
of the world.
I'm looking forward, as we already discussed now, according our sort of vision or according our sort of the plan. Right. So I'm looking forward these things. But then also possible, you see, some of these sort of big monasteries after 2 years, or 1 year or 2 years, that also, you see, possible. So, thank you.
Thank you, Your Holiness. If I might, I'll join my few words to your words. As I look out over the people who are here, and I also imagine myself a few hundred meters down the road to the others who are also watching this, our last session, I think of the many thousands of people who have already benefited by the conversations that we've had. I think also of those who have been watching online. This has been streamed to many tens of thousands of people around the world who are also trying to engage with exactly the same problems and issues that we are working on here. So it's a great privilege and honor to be, in some small way, a contributor to the engagement of science and contemplative traditions of the sort that Your Holiness and all of those who are here represent. But this morning we come to a close of this historic occasion in the meeting between modern science and Buddhist thought on this extraordinary wide range of topics that span from relativity theory and quantum mechanics, which still are difficult for me, Your Holiness. It's not just you and others. We're all puzzled by their remarkable predictions and experiments. And then the work of Richie and the other scientists around this table with regards to neuroscience and the study of consciousness, they all came great distances to be with you and with your colleagues and scholars here, and we're delighted to have come and have joined with you to explore the profound implications of our two views for one another, for ourselves and our world. We came at your kind invitation, and we hope that our contributions have in some small measure contributed to the monastic community of aspiring monks and nuns, to the new educational project that you are launching with the help of such able colleagues. We hope that we have made our contribution as well. But our greatest debt of gratitude goes to you, Your Holiness. You stand, as I see it, at a crossroads. The crossroads perhaps are numerous. They are from the past into the future. They are between science and the contemplative spiritual tradition of which you are such a great representative, the Tibetan Buddhist lineage that you have inherited. You did not seek this job. You were chosen as a child. It's an amazing choice. So, you stand at the crossroads of these two worlds, and I've seen you standing there for quite a long time. It's one where the world of great philosophical and spiritual lineage of Tibetan Buddhism is joined to the other of science, of physics, cosmology, neuroscience, and consciousness. We can no longer afford to segregate these two traditions, these two powerful parts of our civilization, these two streams of human endeavor. And for decades you have faithfully engaged with science, as you say, with us, but also with von Weizsäcker, David Bohm, and others before we even came on the picture. You've engaged with science first, as you described it, out of your own personal interest. But then you recognized that your community here could benefit by that same kind of engagement. But you didn't stop there. You were open to engaging with us. And as a consequence, not only has your personal interest expanded to become the interest of your community, but it is something which has enriched the entire scientific community, and especially, I would say, the younger members of that community. Thousands and thousands of young scientists in the United States, thousands more in Europe, long to find their way to this crossroads at which you have stood for so many years. They too have an inner aspiration as well as an outer technical knowledge, an inner aspiration to live an undivided life, a life where their own inner values, meaning, and purpose You could say their spiritual life is joined to their scientific striving. I was one such person 40 years ago. I know there are thousands that are out there today. The world needs exemplars, models, people who stood there in partnership, in friendship, as you said. So in your person, you have consistently and faithfully sought the means to bring these two worlds together, not only to benefit your community, but as I say, to benefit all. And this reflects, as I see it, your commitment to the bodhisattvic way of life that speaks not of personal benefit, but of the benefit to all human beings, indeed to all sentient beings. I think you know that on the one hand, I'm not a Buddhist, and yet I share your deepest spiritual aspirations, even into the next life. So for over 40 years, I have attempted in my own, much more modest way to live that.
Even next life, remain non-believer, not as a true scientist, but at the same time, this is involved Buddhist sort of idea.
Yeah, perhaps a non-believer in the sense of a non-Buddhist, but a believer in the sense that spiritual life for me is as important as it is to you. I believe in that deep contemplative spirituality. I believe in the power and importance of meditation. I know that from those many years of sitting and practicing. And I see no opposition to modern science. I see that these can fructify and benefit one another. So it's been one of the great joys of my life to join you at that crossroads, and perhaps to stand with you for a time, to labor with you faithfully in the years ahead.